You're listening to The Bon Ray Show. It's 8 in the evening. Tune in every night at 8 to listen to The Bon Ray Show on Irish News Radio or ITV. To The Bon Ray Show on ITV.ie and Irish News Radio. Today is Gruesome Tuesday, so we will be talking about a disgusting, horrific practice as per usual. We've gone through thawing of babies, we've gone through female mutilation, we've gone through the rape game, and we've gone through batchy boys. Today we are talking about child marriages and childbirth, because Mohammed married a 6-year-old child and consumed the marriage at 9. Listening to the Bon Ray Show. Today is Gruesome Tuesday, so we're talking about child brides on ITV.ie and Irish News Radio. So child brides, obviously something that won't be spoke out about, because Mohammed married Alicia at 6 years old and raped her at 9. But before that, in between, he practiced thawing, which I've explained to you before what that is. In fact, Alicia herself in the Hadith talks about Mohammed's soiled clothes, where she'd have to wash the semen off the clothes. She said she used to wash it and spot wash it. Sometimes she'd scratch it with her hands or rub it off her hands, because Mohammed would be mad if he saw the semen, his own semen, on the clothes, so she'd have to wash it before he'd go and pray. And he would do something called a janaba, Janaba, which is a wash, which is sexual relations or a wet dream. So she would have to wash the clothes from him either wanking or having wet dreams. So this is when she was a child herself, washing semen off a grown man's clothes. He was 53. She was like 6 to 9. Absolutely disgusting. And he had other wives as well he could have fucking tortured. 963 girls under 10 were sold off in Iran from 2016 to 2017. If you think this was in the past, this is happening today in all Islamic countries. But because of leftists and the apologists, nothing is being done. It's not been unchallenged. Girls in Saudi and Islamic countries from 8, 10, 6 years old are being married off. Married to men in their 60s. One man, he married in Saudi this year. He married the father sold 2 of his daughters off, one 8 and one 10. One of the men he sold off, the girl was going to be his 4th wife. The girls were sold by the father because he said he was financially struggling. The father got 40,000 for the girls. There's no minimum age for girls to be sold, even an hour old. Last year, a 12-year-old girl was fighting for divorce. She was sold for 22,000. She failed to show up. I wonder why. Saudi Arabia has probably the highest number of child brides in the Middle East, but nothing is being done. And shock horror, the Chief Council of Human Rights is Saudi Arabia. And they are the ones that the highest number, even in their royal family, there has been child brides. It is a disgrace, but nobody, the apologists, And nobody will speak out to Saudi, of course, but they don't really speak out to any Islamic country, but especially Saudi, the West's favourite friend. No international outrage or objection. Instead, they keep awarding Saudi with human rights, the Chief Council of Human Rights. They're on Women's Council. They got some award for child protection, yet they're marrying off children. Like, it's insane that the West just want to keep awarding them, and yet they sell their children, their female children, off. Awarding Saudi, Prince Naf oversees child brides. He's a prince, and his family in the monarchy all have had a long tradition of marrying young girls. The UN or the UN or no single statement condemning child brides or to stop this practice. With the help of the monarchy, has child brides, the Islam obviously encourages it, but the monarchy, because of Islam, because it's in Islam, encourages into child brides. 2006, a judge sentenced a young girl 200 lashes and months imprisoned for being alone with a man in a car she was not related to. But he gets nothing for absolutely raping her. She gets 200 lashes. And last spring, an 8-year-old wife was refused a divorce. An 8-year-old? How could she be a wife? An 8-year-old refused. It's insane. In Yemen, which is another Islamic country, the death of a 12-year-old bride and her baby after she tried to give birth to a child for 3 days. She was in labor for 3 days. She was sold into a marriage, a man twice her age. She got pregnant and died through childbirth, which many young girls do in Islamic countries because their little bodies aren't able to have a baby. It's absolutely disgusting. They should be playing with dolls rather than playing with, I don't know, out in the muck, or playing with a football, or playing and having a life, rather than married to these dirty, disgusting old men who rape them. Sold. They're not even married. This is like ridiculous even calling it a marriage. They're sold. They're sold from their fathers. The fathers sell them and make money off them because they're seen as nothing, and other than to make money out of them. It's disgusting. Turkey, is illegal for 12-year-olds to marry. The psychological and physical damages done to these young girls is outrageous. But nothing's been stopped because it's Islam. A 9-year-old, to settle a family debt, was sold off in Yemen. In Egypt, a girl ran from a marriage she was sold into, turned herself into the police. The bride was sold for 25,000 Egyptian pounds. She was 17. She was slightly older than most of them. She was sold under authorities because they actually have a law in Egypt, strangely enough, for 18, but 90% of females in Egypt are female mutilated. So that means to have sex for them would be absolutely horrific. They'd all be stitched up, so you'd have to break through the stitching, serious amount of bleeding, horrific pain. And then if they get pregnant, to break through that, absolutely horrific. A girl dies in Yemen from internal breeding, sold to a man 5 times older than her. After he raped her, little body was ripped apart and ruptured, died by bleeding to death. The local journalists were warned not to cover the story. West Africa has the highest rates of child brides in Africa, no doubt, all Islamic countries. This is Islam, and there's no point saying, oh, the child brides happen in other places. This happens. This is Islam, and until people start facing up what Islam is, you can't fight it, and you can't fight Islam if you don't understand it. And all these leftists pretending that it's not Islam. This is Islam. And it is in every Muslim to live by Sharia law and not the landlord made laws. Is to live by what they see as their God laws in any country that they're in. That it's to push Sharia law into every single country. It's disgusting. Nothing is being done for these young girls who are dying in childbirth, who are dying through being raped because they were sold by their fathers. Nothing is being done because a lot of these countries, well, like Saudi, the other ones aren't as much money, but Saudi, yes, the UN and USA keep promoting them. They don't, now that they're on the Chief Council of Human Rights, no one goes, not only do you chop off females' heads at a drop of a hat, but these child brides, they're the monarchy, they're the princes in the royal family, are marrying off children. Sold. They're not marrying. I don't even know why I keep using that word, marriage. It's not marriage. They're sold. They're slaves. They're young girls. This is slavery. To be born a female in Islam is to be born a slave. They are sold by their fathers. And then depending on how wealthy their family is, they're sold into marriages. And that's what they are. They're sold. They're slaves. And it's not, the men may be marrying, but the girl is just sold, and that's what she is. She's used. If she dies from internal bleeding, it's a bit of a shame, a bit of a waste of money. But she dies through childbirth, there's no big deal. He got his money worth out of it. If she tries to get a divorce, it's almost seen as bad that that she's running away from this because the father was given money because she was sold. She's a property. She was sold. So therefore it's very difficult for these girls to get divorced because they're seen as property. So a girl going in looking for a divorce because the man kicks the shit out of her and rapes her every night, it's like, well, your father got 40,000 for you, is your father going to give back the money? And that is the attitude. And that is what Western world has to get into their stupid little heads and stop being apologists for Islam. This is Islam. Young girls get sold, and this is why they can't divorce, and this is why they can't get out, and this is why they're sold, because they're sold by their fathers, because their fathers don't see them as anything, their brothers don't see them as anything, their husbands don't see them as anything. Females have no value. They have no value other than to be sold to a man 3 or 4 or 5 times older than the child. And yes, it's the only sadness that they feel that the girl bleeds to death through being raped because she's raptured. It's like, oh, it's a waste of money. He could have got 25,000 on somebody else who may not have bled to death. Or if that she bleeds through childbirth, oh, well, that was a bit of a waste of money. And that is their view. Their only sadness is if that child, that girl who is having the baby, if she was having a son. That's the only thing that they would feel upset about. And they'd feel maybe then Allah has cursed her, but not because the child is dying through birth, because her little body isn't able to give birth, because she's a child. She shouldn't be having sex. And she shouldn't have had female mutilation, shouldn't even be mutilated, shouldn't have had any of this life. She should be free, but because as a female, you're born a slave and you get sold. You get your female parts chopped off and you get sold into a marriage. And if you don't die through the wedding night, or you don't die through childbirth, you're probably worse off because you live a horrific life of rape after rape. And then your rapist may, if you're lucky, marry another person, and maybe he'll spend his time raping them before he gets onto another one, before he can have sex slaves. That is your life as a female in Islam. It is nothing, absolutely worse than slavery in America. Well, there was slavery. Thank you for listening on the Bonnery Show. Today is the gruesome Tuesday, where we talk about Islamic practice. This one was gruesome, but it was actually kind of heart-wrenching sad that little girls have no value in Islam, and the West, which could put pressure on Saudi by not allowing the kings and the monarchy into the West until they stop this practice, do nothing. In fact, they keep promoting them. The West's greed put before these girls' lives is a disgrace. All Islamic countries should be put under pressure that these girls are stop being sold, and that slavery for girls is to be stopped. But the West does nothing. As I said, the Saudi are Chief Council of Human Rights for the UN, and are on Women's Council on the UN. And Ireland was the one country who voted for them to be on Women's Council. It's a disgrace, a disgusting disgrace is what it is. Thank you for listening on the Bonnery Show on itv.ie for the truth.
You are listening to Irish News Radio at irishnews.net. Email news@irishnews.net.